Okay, welcome everybody to the Orange School Committee meeting. We're going to start out, since this is a normal meeting. Actually, before we do that, this meeting is being recorded. If anybody else is recording it, please let us know. We're going to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, first up on the agenda, we have the student rep update. Malia and Zoe, want to take it away?
Yep. Can you guys hear us all right? Or hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Just checking. So we asked the principals about how back to school is going, and everything was pretty positive. All the kids are super excited to be back at school. We did get a couple specific responses, and Malia has most of those, but the elementary schools were super excited to see their teachers and being new classes, and so that was pretty positive. But Malia has stuff from the Yale to specific quotes from the kids. So Malia?
So Mr. Gagan got a lot of, like Zoe said, specific quotes. He talked about a lot of the kids about the start of the school year, and they had a ton of different comments, which is awesome. They were super excited to be back. Love seeing my friends. I love my new teachers. They are so kind. These first few days have been the best. I love all the activities we are doing right now. Great to meet and make new friendships, especially with students from the other school, JCS or LGN, because that's when they combine. Fifth graders said they love doing the morning announcements. Recess is great. I agree. I love getting hashtags, which is their PBIS incentive program. They're looking forward to band and playing an instrument. One of them got a good news call of the day, and that was great. Teachers in all caps. And they said, and Mr. Balawa and Mr. G are very nice, and it's nice to see them all around the school. And he said that was the general kind of gist from the fourth and fifth graders. So not a ton, but good that the overall response is it's going good. It's going well. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for us, but
We have a little bit from the high school. Just I think everyone's excited to be as close to normal as possible and not having the one-way hallways, which was making travel times crazy. But I think main event right now coming up is senior cruise. So I know I'm excited for that, but overall pretty positive. So that's it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing.
Hey, thanks guys, appreciate it. All right, we have a short agenda tonight. We actually only have one item in our business. Next up on the agenda is the discussion and vote on revision to face mask policies, EBCFA for Little Answers preschool program. Just to be clear, one thing we're not going to be looking at and reviewing right now is anything K through 12. If there's anything to be done there, that will not be today. Before we move forward with the discussion on this, Dr. Biana, I want to turn it over to you just to make sure that we're clear to everybody on quarantining, et cetera, with respect to mask versus non-mask.
Okay. Everyone has at some point in the last few weeks before the start of school, I think it was actually the week before the start of school, received protocols. The chair requested that I just go through them to enter them into the record tonight as part of our meeting. So if you test positive for COVID-19, of course, you're going to stay home and you follow what's called Protocol A. Protocol A means you can return to school on day 11 and once your symptoms improve or you are fever-free without fever-reducing medicine for at least 24 hours. Please note that the 10-day onset begins with the symptoms. So from the day that you actually say to yourself, I'm not feeling well, that's when you begin the counting process. In that handout, the close contact, which is called Protocol B now, is an asymptomatic close contacts. And these close contacts with COVID-19 infection, and you are asymptomatic and exempt from testing and quarantine, you're asymptomatic and fully vaccinated. The classroom close contacts provided both individuals wear masks and at least 3 feet apart. The bus post contacts, provided that the individual mask and bus windows were open, and there's a certain number of bus windows that have to be open. Or you have had COVID in the past 90 days. Then it goes into, are you exempt from testing and quarantine? Yes, you remain in school. No, does your school offer test and stay? And are you opting in? If yes, you revert to the test and stay protocol B1, which is 7 days, and it's on school days, not extracurricular, and any extracurricular on weekend days. If you say no, which option then you follow is you go to quarantine and a test. You follow protocol B, so it goes back to announced earlier, which is a return to school on day 8. Or you say no to the test and you go to protocol B3, which means you're out for 11 days and you remain asymptomatic and you can monitor through day 14. So the protocol would be, and all of that is via parental choice for anyone under the age of 18. So it's the process. We have a form we're working on right now to send out to families. So the families will know from the beginning, if you say no to, for example, the test and stay, then this is what you have to do on your own. And students are home. If you're going through the protocol, you can choose the alternative. That's a parental decision. Maybe with the older students, it's you and your child. The older child makes that decision, but clearly for the younger students, there's more parental involvement. Protocol C is for symptomatic individuals at school, and they're experiencing the symptoms, and then they'll do the Binex now test again option. If they're positive, they go all the way back to protocol A, which I announced earlier. If they're negative, they go and they're presenting with any of the following symptoms: fever, difficulty breathing, so on and so forth. Then it goes in a number of different directions of what you have to do based on being vaccinated or not vaccinated, which of course with students under the age of 12 would be the non-vaccinated. And then you can return to the classroom once you don't have those symptoms. If it's a yes, which option do you follow? Then again, you go into the protocol for C1, which is post-symptoms and testing, and can return to school if the symptoms are improving. Protocol C2, the alternative protocol. Again, these are all on our website as well, available, and I expect that I'll probably be sending them out pretty regularly as part of information to families. Today, I had numerous conversations, and I also had a meeting with DESI pertaining to one of the major things that they're looking at, which is the idea that the contact tracing really hasn't changed that much. They're still looking at that, no less than 3, preferably 6 to 15 minutes to 24 hours, but they're not suggesting that an entire classroom that needs to be necessarily closed and everybody sent home for the day. We have to really do our due diligence and try to figure out. For us, it actually becomes easier in areas like hallways or in areas like the gym or in areas like the cafeteria, because we have a lot of cameras that are available to us within the classroom. It's basically a discussion that needs to take place between the teachers and the nurse's office and what takes place next. We are also starting the week of the 13th, reporting out to DESI on a Wednesday basis. So we'll have our typical daily announcement that we do on COVID in our COVID, but DESI is now once again collecting data and publishing that data and keeping track of that data for school systems throughout the Commonwealth. I'm going to assume that has to do with that October 1st situation. I'm going to take a look at collecting a few weeks of data to see if there's going to be any potential changes. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. I'm glad it's going to be on the website. So I'm sure people are going to have to look at it over. That's a lot of information. All right, next up, before we go into any deliberations up here, I'm going to allow for a brief period of comments. I say brief because we did have a lengthy 2.5-hour plus meeting last night where people were free to air their opinions. And quite honestly, at this point, I've heard a lot of them, and I don't think there's anything that's going to change my stance on this. However, I don't want to deny people the opportunity to talk. They could not make last night's meeting, or if they feel like they need to add to what they said last night. So very briefly, I would open up to comments. That includes the people who are not physically here. If you're on Zoom and you want to say something, please just theoretically raise your hand. There's a raise your hand button and let us know that you want to comment. And if anybody else in the audience wants to comment, please come up to the microphone. Okay, it seems like we do not have any comments.
Continue to check on the
Okay, so we'll open up for deliberation. Is there anybody on the committee that wants to speak on this or say anything? Nobody? Okay, I'm gonna briefly kind of just go through my thoughts on this. So if I'm really being, if I'm being straight with everybody, I honestly don't think that anybody here on this podium, I won't speak for Dr. Biana or General, but as far as the school committee goes, I don't think anybody here, quite frankly, is qualified to know this kind of stuff. We're not immunologists, we don't work for the CDC, et cetera. If you were asking my frank opinion, I would say I think this whole thing has been a massive dereliction of duty by the powers that be. I think that there were a lot of opportunities to make this much clearer, much less, at least optically arbitrary. It may be more quantitative, give us some actual numbers. Here's what we need to do. Here's what we need to be. So quite honestly, I think this is an absolute disaster. From the top down, it was handled very, very poorly. Even so much as to DESE handing us a mandate at the last minute. I think it was unfair to us. It put us in a really untenable position. And quite honestly, I'm furious about it from day one. I think this was abject failure of leadership across the board. So with that being said, go ahead.
So I just want to, because of course I'm sitting here thinking about this, so I just really wanted to kind of get this off my chest because, we were told to get vaccinated so we could go back to normal life. And listening to Dr. Biana talk about quarantine and contact tracing and mask policy, this is nothing like back to normal life. I'm disgusted with the leadership just everywhere. These politicians wonder why there's no trust in our government. These are the reasons why. I'm so disheartened. This has been a terrible, terrible time to be a school committee member. That the stress is unreal, and I just hope that people remember that.
Anybody else want to comment? Catherine, did you want to?
All right, so yesterday I started my 18th year of substitute teaching. I know firsthand what it's like to work in a kindergarten classroom fully masked. It's awful, and no one's denying that. It's true that most of the children, including the teachers, aren't wearing their masks properly, and it seems silly to me that snack time and lunchtime seem to be an okay time to take it off. Last year, we were told that we were absolutely crazy for starting hybrid right away from the beginning, and we'd certainly have to shut down a school. But at that time, I thought, and I think most of us thought, that the importance of making sure that teachers were in front of students for any amount of time was worth the risk. And I feel that way now. We have to weigh the social emotional development impact on a child with the potential health risk of a virus. Last year, we never had to close down a school. I'm hoping that we don't have to do that again this year. But after hearing a lot of talk about how flu and other sicknesses were down because of wearing masks and because of people getting vaccinated, I feel like it's setting us up to be in masks permanently, and that scares me.
Okay, so I do want to address a couple of things that were discussed last night. And first and foremost, I think we're going to have to discuss the idea that we can kind of get around the DESE K through 12 mandate by instituting a non-discipline policy. Dr. Biana spent a good amount of time today with both DESE and our counsel, our legal counsel. And while I understand the idea that, hey, we can just not discipline, I understand that. The problem is that anything you do is going to have consequences. It's going to have ramifications. And, you know, there were a number of people yesterday who said, hey, you serve at the pleasure of us, you serve at the pleasure of the people. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And anybody who knows me knows I honestly do feel that way. I very much owe my duty to the people of this town. That being said, first and foremost, I have to have a duty to the school system as a whole. And it became clear in discussing this with Dr. Biana and Desi and legal counsel that the consequences to us, to the school system, would have been extremely dire. John, I don't know if you want to discuss some of those, but when we're talking about sort of potentially very, very heavy financial penalties, in some cases, people's livelihoods would be screwed around with. And I just, as much as I don't necessarily say I love the mandate, and as much as I would like local control back, at this point, I don't think that the right thing to do for the town is to ignore that mandate and incur those types of penalties. I know that people are going to disagree with me. I get it. Listen, it's not easy to make a decision that's really unpopular. But unfortunately, I can't in good conscience make that type of decision and allow for, what could be potentially the ruination and collapse of our district as a whole. So I'm not saying that anybody else up here feels that way. This is a decision that I'm making. And it's a decision that is potentially in play. I mean, if things change, if conditions on the ground change, I'm always willing to rethink my positions. I'm not somebody who says, hey, I was born on this day and I made up my mind and that's what I'm going to do. But certainly, like right now, if I'm looking at this, I don't see a way that we can feasibly do what people are asking us to do. Secondly, there was a request that we would reach out to Desi and voice our displeasure. On that, I think that's something I am willing to do. I don't think I necessarily want to say, hey, I'm mad at the mandate. I think what I'd be more mad about and what I can really get behind is, again, back to that local control. I think that conditions in Norton and conditions in Easton and Foxborough out to the Berkshires, et cetera, conditions are different everywhere. And it would have been nice if they were going to take us to the last hour, if they're going to take us to the 11th hour, it would have been nice to kind of leave it in local control. And I have every belief that if others are willing up here to do it, I would be absolutely willing to write a letter to that effect to Desi and say, hey, you know what? This should have been a local control question. We're disappointed about it. And request that gets returned to local control. They won't listen to us, I don't believe, but we can certainly, make that voice heard. I know that's not necessarily what everybody wanted. I think people wanted more than that. But at this point, that's what I can do. So.
I would also be willing to sign a letter going to Desi to explain, just exactly what you just said, because I feel the same way. And also I'd like to know, come October 1st, what is their plan? Are they planning on continuing to take this away from us and continuing to make decisions for us? Or are we going to, again, like you said, be able to have control back locally? Because I do believe that is where it belongs.
Yeah, I mean, listen, in the end, pulling this stuff like they did, and I get it, the numbers change and you have to kind of rethink things as you go along. But in the end, they put us in a really, really bad position. They put us in a no-win position, and we're not going to win. And I'm starting to become comfortable with that, and I realize that we're going to do the best we can do. It's what we always do. We make the decisions we believe are the right decisions, and we just have to roll forward with that. So I see Mr. Schleicher has a comment, so I'm going to let him grab the mic.
Nick Schleicher, 40 Northwestern Street, North Mass. I guess to the school committee then, what is your end goal? Okay, come October 1st, we've done this for 18 months. Do we just keep sitting and getting beaten by Desi? Do we just keep allowing our children to keep getting railroaded every single time? When is that point that you five are going to say enough is enough? We're pushing back. And again, the letter starts. I understand, just like any letter. It's going to do the same thing. Yep, in one error, thanks for your letter, see you later. When's the game time? When do we say enough is enough? We're demanding action. we're not asking anymore, we're demanding. When is that point? When do we hit that point of our school committee, our parents, the town of Norton, area towns say enough is enough, put this back in local control, and how does it happen?
Yeah, I don't think people up here disagree with you, quite honestly. It's honestly what you're saying though is a matter of semantics, right? We can write that letter and say, hey, we request, or we can write that letter and say, hey, we demand it right now. And quite honestly, in my opinion, I think it's still going to be in one ear, out the other. I don't think they're going to listen to us, quite frankly. And I don't think there's any incentive for them to right now, if I'm being honest with you. They're sitting up there in Boston or wherever they're at, but they're sitting there and they're doing what they want to do, and that's that. And there's not really, to be honest with you, in my opinion, there's not a ton of accountability to us up here. So I don't disagree with you. Like I would like to get a lot of this stuff back to local control. I think, frankly,
that's a citizen of Norton. How? This is our kids. These are our kids, not the state kids. They're your kids. They're our kids. How do we make that push to say no more? Do we need more superintendents in other districts to say, knock it off, put it back in? Do we need to get other parents from other towns in southeastern Massachusetts? We bring them down to, Comcast Center and we sit all down there and we put our heads together and say enough is enough. What is the breaking point? We're just going to keep getting railroaded? 12-year-olds aren't getting vaccinated. They can't. So what are we going to do? Be in mass for the next 3 years? Think about the first graders. He's been in mass now through their end of their preschool, all through kindergarten. They're going to be all through first grade because October 1st means complete garbage. They're just going to push it back. When do we get to that point where the town comes together and says, know what, if we have to pull out of DESE and we got to make up $2 million because they're going to pull our funding, let's freaking do it. And I know $2 million is a lot of money.
So Mr. Steiger, to answer your first question, and it's a big question. How do we change that? As I sit here right now, I don't know. If I'm being very honest with you, I don't know the answer to how to change it right now. It certainly would take a groundswell. It's not something that the five of us can do, but the Commonwealth as a whole certainly can. I would hope that there are other people that feel the same way and say, hey, we want to get this back to local control on that. With respect to the second question, which I believe to summarize was kind of when do we get out of this? When do we say enough is enough? Sometimes when you're fighting, you got to cover up a little bit and wait to see your spot, see your shot.
We covered up for 18 months. We're ain't covering up anymore. We're going on the attack. That's how you got to win. And unfortunately, we need you five. We need you five to be the leaders of the North School Committee. We need you to get behind the parents. We need you to start throwing your weight. We need Dr. Biana or Mrs. O'Neill running with us and making it a groundswell, because it doesn't start with 5 people, it starts with 1, and 1 turns into 2, and 2 turns into 4, and then 4 turns into 400. Whatever we need to do, we need to figure it out. We are going to keep the pressure on you, and it's not a personal attack. To me, this is you guys' jobs. This is us as citizens coming to you, asking for help of how can we get our children back under our control.
Absolutely. We signed up for this year. 100% ready. It is our job. At this point, we're fighting an 800-pound gorilla, and we're a spider monkey, and that's it's just the reality. It's a behemoth, and so unfortunately, I know it's not what you want to hear, but we have to find a spot. And right now, I personally, I don't see the spot. I don't see the knockout punch. I don't see the way we say, hey, bam, you know what, we got you. It's not to say we're not looking. It's not to say we're not. If I'm being fair to DESE, until recently, I think it was a fairly copacetic relationship. I don't think there was a lot that we were like, hey, these guys are really, overstepping their bounds. This is a weird situation, quite frankly. We're in uncharted territory here. I don't think anybody here was alive in 1918. So nobody really has, survived a true pandemic. So this is a weird time. And it's very possible that this eventually fades away and they kind of go back and do their thing. Or it could be that this is now a new frontier for them. I just don't know the answer to that. I wish I could give you more answers to what you're saying, but I don't want to sit there and BS you and say, hey, this is what I don't know yet, to be honest with you.
So why don't we float another idea? We just said we have cameras in hallways, gymnasiums, cafeterias, whatever. I'm assuming there's not cameras in classrooms, whatnot. Why don't we go down that route? put masks on the kids in common areas, but in their classrooms, when they're learning, masks are off. And we don't discipline. And we don't say masks are off. We say we are strongly recommending masking because the DESE is mandating those. We are mandating, however, we are not disciplining in the classrooms. So is yours.
We just like for a second, just made a couple comments. You've asked the question of somebody who served for 6 years on an elected school committee in my hometown, been a superintendent for 13 years, public ed for 30 years, public educated, right? This is a web between of education that is very convoluted in Massachusetts. If you go to almost a lot of the other states, for example, their county systems, everything's run by a county system. Here, and by the way, with boards that have significant more power than school committees in Massachusetts and New Hampshire do, for example. Actually, Massachusetts has the power to hire and fire the superintendent. It has the power to pass policy. It has the power to pass a budget. It has the recommendation to hire, on the superintendent's recommendation only by statute, the assistant superintendent, the business manager, and the sped director, and the school nurse and the school doctor. Everybody else is under the purview of the building principal through the protocol of my office. There are 4,000 bills this year that have been filed. I think I said this last night. And over 500 of them, I sit on a committee that is for MASS, the superintendent's group, that has been disconnected to DESE for a long time. We have not only that, the Mass Teachers Association, the Boston Teachers Association, Boston Teachers Union, I should say, and the American Federation of Teachers, those are the three big unions in the Commonwealth, have a different view of DESE than MASS does, than the School Committee Association does. It's the web, right? It depends on the topic. Superintendents are very much against unfunded mandates because they're given to us and then we have to go to our school committees and say, how the heck are we going to implement this? That's like one of our number one things is any bill that's filed, if we think it's going to potentially cost money, professional development, hiring more people, buying more curriculum, whatever it may be, we traditionally stay on the background and say, well, we're not saying no, but we're sure as heck not saying yes because you're not funding. School committees in Massachusetts are appointed or elected. There's only, I believe now there's 2 in the entire state that are appointed. The remaining are all elected there. Massachusetts, I think there's maybe a couple of school committees that are paid, but in general, in almost every suburban community, they're non-paid positions, very much like the selectmen. The disconnect for me, and I don't say this towards harm of any state representative and senator, is the bills that are filed are always special interest. I can't think of one that's not. They're always special interest. What happens is the committee then, based on what comes down, has 2 avenues. They're either given the authority to vote on that issue, or they're told this is the new requirement. Those are the 2 options that they have. There have been communities where towns haven't come to an agreement in budgets. Dayton or Holbrook is one of the most recent ones. Whitman Hanson and a number of other ones. The state takes over full receivership of the financials for that district. They only give them 1 month's money every month until they can come to a resolution. Probably one of the weirdest things that you can see out there. When you look at policy, this is one of the first policies that's been mandated back to schools in this way in at least the 30 years that I've been around. And I've been, like I said earlier, a very activist person at the local level in my own hometown as an elected official. Not, in other words, it's always been, here's the an example of a policy, and you guys kind of go through it, consider what weeds you want to implement and which ones you don't, right? A couple of topics where that hasn't been so. This is the latest, and then there's been some issues around student safety in regards to sexuality, in regards to racism and all that stuff that the state has very specific guidelines on. And lastly, there is the positive and sometimes negative relationship that happens with labor, where the school committee has to impact bargain any type of changes to their working conditions. So we have an administrative association, paraprofessional, which is actually part of the Norton Teachers Association, are working in that way, but they're together. That's our biggest unit. We have our custodial, and then we have food services privatized, but they're privatized with their own company, so I don't deal with them. So any changes that you have to a policy at any point automatically impact Chapter 150E, which is a change in working conditions. That's what happened last year when we had to go into hybrid or remote, right? We had an impact bargain with the Norton Teachers Association. The custodians, there wasn't a whole lot of discussions. I mean, people were more worried about their jobs than anything else. So my point is this, so that I can start the conversation. It is a web, and I said it last night, and one of our friends last night emailed me again this morning, a colleague of yours that was in the audience, and we've had really good conversations, to be quite honest, maybe from different perspectives, but still very good conversations. And I said, this goes back to the decision in Massachusetts on how to distribute funding that took place when ed reform came about. In order for real change to be made, there's going to have to be a lawsuit somewhere. And I know it could be contentious. I mean, if you decide to sue the Norton School Department, of course, it's going to get contentious. It's part of it. But I do think that these 5 people are volunteers. For them, it's like a headache that they're going to get sued if that were to happen, or another school system. Other than that, it's business. It's a business. I mean, I've been sued numerous times as superintendent because of my role, not as an individual, but because of my role in the decision that we made as a district. So in order for you to deal with your question, we have to find a way, regardless of your view. You speak very eloquently. I actually said to somebody else last night on the views that you have, but I don't, as I said last night, I don't know if your view is actually a majority of the view of the parents of the school district. And so it's very
fair. That's fair.
Right. So,
but those people should be here voicing their opinion.
Well, as you know, when I as somebody who truly believes that regardless if it's a good thing or bad thing, you need to show up. Because if this room was stacked and you really could see 50% of the people here, 50% of the people there, then you could say to yourself, holy cow, truly, whatever decision I make, I'm just as friendly with 50% of the people. I mean, it is what it is. And I don't say that as a negative statement to anybody who spoke last night at all. I mean, you did your due diligence. You showed up based on the views and the perspectives that you have. It even seemed like it was somewhat organized from what I saw. And others, there were a minority folks in here that had the different view. And typically that's because of what typically happens in public education, which is things are going all right for my kid, I'm not worried about it. Things aren't going all right for my kid, I'm not worried about it. It's not until something that all of a sudden it becomes a 10, right? So, I've told the committee numerous times, whatever decision they have to make, my job is to carry it out. I don't have to agree with it, I have to carry it out. And wouldn't be the first time in my entire career that's happened, but, and it is a contentious issue. I'm going to be interested to see how many of the potential preschool change tonight, how many of our preschool parents walk away from preschool, specifically either families who have severe medical issues, and by that walk away, that would actually come back to us, or the peer models who just say, I'm going to go somewhere else because I'm concerned about that. So I'm really interested to see if there is a change, is there an outcome change on the other side, or do people just say, nope, I'm just going to go with it? And that would speak volumes as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think back to your point, people are just going to go with it. That's what people do. People follow. They don't want to stand up. They don't want their kid cut from the baseball team because mom and dad were at the school committee yelling at the school committee. That's the truth. That's the God honest truth. People don't want to be shamed on social media. They have businesses in town. They don't want to lose clients based on their views. And with this view, yes, there are politics involved because it is a hot contentious issue. That's the issue. The thing is I do truly believe the state did give an out when saying whether. I truly do think by saying that, giving the option of how to discipline and letting it says right in there, local districts decide discipline. To me, that was the oath from the state allowing us to, hey, you know what is the school's going to do? So again, I understand if we're going to keep the kids in mask, can we maybe think of the next idea? In classroom learning, we're not going to discipline. If they're in the hallways, they don't have their mask on, they're not listening, we'll discipline them. We need to think of something because we can't keep doing this. We can't do this for a whole another year, a whole 2 years, 3 years. We have no idea how long this is going to last. It's not a light switch. It's not magically someone's going to walk over the wall and push the light switch and everyone's going to be on mask. That's not what's going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. You know, so again, from the citizens of Norton, maybe I am in the minority, maybe there's 10% of us, but unfortunately, last night we were the loudest and we were here. And those people who just either following along, don't care which way it goes. From my conversations, just throwing out text messages to parents in town, most of them said, I don't really care. I would obviously vote for no mask, I just want them in school. That was their big thing. That's what it is. So some people are like, hey, you know what? All right, if you're going to keep them in school, put a mask on them, I don't care. To me, that's, that's their own saying. Parent choice. And that's why I'm here. It should be parent choice. And I understand it's not you because it's all last night. I'm going to, not touch upon that again. But again, I just want to know how the Norton School Committee is going to, what are our next steps? This can't just stop with a 2-hour public forum, a vote on little answers, and then see you later. We'll just wait for the state. We will be waiting forever. So, I want to have you supporting, and again, if you don't want to support, that's fine too. But you're not going to support come April. We are going to put up different candidates who will support, because that's what the public elections are for. So I'm asking the school committee, what are you doing? How can you help us? What is your future plans? And that's, that's what I got. And that's kind of where I'm going.
So, Mr. Schleicher, would you be okay if we said, can we come back to you with that? Because I don't think we have an answer tonight that's going to be a solid thing for the problem.
Yes.
I think we need to think that through and come back to you, because right now, I don't have anything.
Perfect.
It's not to say that we never will.
Yeah. When's the next meeting? 2 weeks?
We meet theoretically every 2 weeks, but there are sometimes different gaps.
Okay. So can we say by the end of September? By October 1st? Because when that gets all blown up and nothing changes?
Okay.
Do we have a plan then?
Or September, so it's 2 weeks, all right? Perfect. I mean, listen, honestly, I think we were discussing having open forum at the beginning of meetings, a brief on that, something like last night, but if you feel strongly, and obviously you do, then come each one and say, hey, where do we stand? Don't keep our feet to the fire. Don't let us rest. And I get it. Listen, if you don't like the job I'm doing and vote me out, I absolutely understand that. And sometimes I say, hey, I wish people would, honestly. More so this year than ever, I'll be honest with you. But we're not ignoring the constituents. That's never our intention. I mean, I think Sherry might have said one time, we listen more than anybody knows. Probably we listen more than any government body that you ever deal with, quite frankly. I think we're always receptive to hearing you guys, and we're going to work towards it. We get what you're saying, and I think it's likely that if you asked 100 of the parents, do you want your kids to wear masks or not? I would say do not wear masks, right? Nobody wants to. If you ask them about the mandates, well, are you going to adhere to the mandate or not? My guess is probably the people who say, hey, we don't want to adhere to the mandate are probably in a minority, and that's okay. It's not to say that the minority is wrong. Sometimes the minority is right, quite frankly. And I'm not saying in this case people are right or wrong. I've heard a number of opinions on why we should or shouldn't do this. And there are times when I agree with those people and there are times I disagree, even if I feel the same way. So we'll have to come back to you and hold our feet to the fire, and we'll see what we can do. And I do want to say very briefly, and I don't want to get too bogged down because again, this is not really the agenda. The agenda is really the answers right now. But I do want to say with respect to the DESE and the weather, et cetera. So we went to DESE directly, and DESE said to us, Dr. Betty, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you will. It is not a choice to just not discipline. It is a progressive discipline. So their expectation is that if you come in without a mask, forgot it at home, whatever, we don't just simply say, you're expelled. You say, hey, we can give you a mask. If you still refuse to ask, okay, we'll talk to parents. I think that's the idea of whether, when, and Dr. Betty, if you want to talk to that, I certainly would like to. But they told us directly, this is not something you can just say, hey, we'll ignore any kind of ramifications. I don't think that's the intention of this, and that's what they've told us directly. Joe, you want to address that or no? If you don't, that's fine.
No, I mean, I can't claim anything on the issue of October 1st or on the issues of school discipline. I know that students have been showing up to school and we haven't had any issues with it. I would anticipate that the next move would be a concerted effort to go in another direction. That's what I see.
Fair enough.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Schleicher, thanks for your comments. They're insightful. I appreciate it.
Yes, can I make a comment? I will be very brief compared to last night. Kelly Gallagher, 201 Bay Road. So just an idea to think about maybe. So I believe you guys are members of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. Okay, so there's like a listserv, right? Or some kind of, like a listserv or some kind of email chain or something that you guys all communicate on. All right, so why not, this is a strength in numbers thing. So the next point is it's going to take someone to be the leader and to, have courage and be courageous for our children. So why not just send an email out to the listserv, to all the other school committees and ask them, this is what we want to do, whether it be, a letter campaign or phone calls or both, or, some meetings or some kind of call to action where you don't just take this on yourself. You need strength in numbers. So why not reach out to other school committees and ask them to join you? So it's dozens and dozens, and hopefully, a lot of school committees are joining together to push back on DESE for the kids. Thank you.
So I think that having different opinions is really important. And I think that, everybody's opportunity to be open-minded really helps get a conversation started and really think about all options of a decision. With that being said, I've been on the school committee for 4+ years. I've been an active member of the Norton Public Schools for now 15 years. And last night I was not able to attend because I am a college instructor and it was my first class. And I wasn't about to tell my students that I couldn't be at my very first class. I've been teaching on Wednesday evenings for the past 5 years, so it wasn't a surprise by anybody when that decision was made to have a meeting last night that I wouldn't be able to attend because I don't attend on Wednesday evenings anyway. With that being said, there was a concern that I wasn't here. So I feel like I just need to say publicly that as a parent, I have been a parent board chairperson for over 10 years at multiple schools in this district. I have sat on multiple search committees for our superintendent who's currently sitting and for multiple school principals, both at the Yale, at the JCS, and at the middle school. I was active in building a playground at JCS, and I fundraised over $80,000 at JCS to have a new playground built. Well, some of it was already there before I started. As a school committee member, I am active with the role of that. I go to every meeting. I think in my 4+ years, I may have missed 3 meetings. And I just want to publicly say that nothing about this role by me is taken for granted. So I have visited the State House. I've been involved in different presentations and conferences with the Mass Association of School Committees. I work diligently with our staff. I am on multiple committees, and I feel that I have a deep connection with the school department, with the administrators, and hopefully with many of the teachers. So I felt like I really needed to say that publicly. It was so hurtful that anybody could suggest that me not being here last night was my disrespect for the conversation or for the events that are happening. I also want to say that for every single email, and I should also preface that in the 4+ years on the school committee, including last year during COVID when I was the chairperson, I don't think that I have received as many emails from parents voicing their opinions and their thoughts and their ideas on this topic. And I want to sort of publicly state that there are just as many emails coming from parents who are supporting the mandate as there are for parents who are not supporting the mandate. With that being said, I'm not sure the threat of litigation is the best way to have the conversation. I think that one of the things that I know is that as a school committee, we always strive to do what is best. We are guided by our leaders, we're guided by state, we're guided by conversations we have individually with staff, with administrators, with each other in individual moments of conversation. Nothing about this has been anything that we have taken for granted, that we haven't thought about. We don't always agree, but our goal is always to do what is best for the school department, for the school district as a whole, and for children. So earlier today, I received an email, as did the rest of the committee, from a parent who said that she was a remote member last night and had, Jen, I'm sorry, she had made a comment that she wasn't recognized. I don't know if there was a problem. It seemed like there was a couple of parents who were trying to make a comment, and her email, and I do have permission to read her email. I was a remote participant in last night's school committee. Oh, and she also gave me permission to state her name is Jill Blake. I was a remote participant in last night's school. I don't know her address. Godfrey Farm Road. Gaffney Farm Road. Thank you. I was a remote participant in last night's school committee open forum. I submitted a statement last night through the Q&A feature, but I'm unsure if it was received or noted, as I never received confirmation. My statement last night read, please know that my family and my Norton High School student fully support the enforcement and upholding of the DESE and statewide pre-K mask mandate. We know that the masking protects our littlest Lancers, our staff, and our older students, and our larger community. Breakthrough cases are real, and COVID is highly contagious. A mask that acts as a barrier is scientifically proven way to protect ourselves and others. I would like to add that I implore you as public employees and elected town officials to uphold the statewide mandate in its entirety with consequences for noncompliance. We feel that anything less would be no different than not adhering to and thus not following the mandate. There are already well thought out, clearly outlined procedures for those who require medical or behavioral exemption. We implore you to listen to the scientific facts put forth by the Centers for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, and the American Pediatric Association. Thank you, Jill Blake. So I'm not suggesting that I have to agree with everything that is being sort of shared with me by email, but I just want everybody to know that there are just as many families, maybe not as vocal, maybe not at the meeting last night, who are also sending us emails. Again, in the 4+ years I've been on the school committee, I don't think I have received so many emails from so many parents. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware, as Dr. Biana said, if we were to put everybody in a room, we may sort of see a very significant divide, 50% who are supporting a mask mandate and 50% who are not. So for every person who tells us that we are if we don't vote a certain way, that we're not supporting them, just recognize that there's a group of individuals who also, by us voting a certain way, recognize us not supporting them.
Okay, I was going to wait until our other business, but after Mrs. Gallagher, I feel like this is more appropriate now. I'd like to apologize to my colleagues because last night at the forum, we were advised by council to listen to what the people had to say, but not to respond except to say thank you for your comments. I tried my best, but once I found my colleagues and I were accused of not caring about our elected positions, the education of our children, and not putting children and teachers' safety first, I could not stay silent. It's the only reason why we take this position. I assure you, that may not be the case in every school committee, but it certainly is with ours. I'd also like to mention that more than one person said parents should have been asked about what they thought about the masking situation. I don't know about anybody else, but I have never been asked by a selectman, a governor, a congressman, or a senator how I felt about a decision that they were getting ready to make. If I felt strongly about a matter, I would contact them and let them know how I feel about the situation as their constituent, which is how over 25 emails in the last week, I believe, from the townspeople obviously did the same thing. So to be accused of not asking people what they thought, if you can show me a congressman that goes around and knocks on people's door to ask them what they think or sends them an email to ask them what they think, then I would agree with you. But I know from what the town has done for us or to us with emails, I believe that that's the situation, not for us to go out and ask the opposite.
Mr. Schleifer, I'll be super quick. Ms. Gallagher, I think the big thing here is there was no communication, no transparency that you weren't going to be here. So when you get into a meeting, knowing it's going to be a highly contentious matter, and there's 4 people rather than 5 in an empty seat. If we knew, obviously, if we were, hey, given, if Mrs. Savas said, hey, listen, we are missing a member tonight. She is doing X, Y, and Z. It would have stopped that nonsense right from the beginning. You can't just expect us to walk in, not have a school committee member there, and we have no idea why you're not there. That was the thing. And again, I'm not personally attacking you. I know you've been very, have done your due diligence in town. But again, that's what I said last night was like, she should be here. If that wasn't the case, we should have known that ahead of time, so that's one big thing. 2, though I do agree with you, about, congressmen don't walk around asking their constituents what they think on a matter. No, but they do have websites, they have stances, they do debates. We don't really do that here. You guys sent out a survey last year about, remote hybrid, 2 parents. That was never sent out about masking, unmasking, and every other mandate we want to talk about. So there is a little bit of communication and lack of transparency when it comes to the school committee and the members of what's happening. That's it.
I'm going to just address that very quickly, then I'll move on, because we're starting to devolve into kind of a finger pointing. I'm not sure we're on topic anymore. The topic is really the little answers, but with respect to that, Mr. Schleifer, we have meetings, 10 months of the year. There are occasions when people can't make it. We never say, hey, so-and-so is not going to be here, and here's why. As long as we have 3 members, we have enough to pass a vote. That's all we need. With respect to why they're not here, sometimes they're personal matters, and quite honestly, I wouldn't be comfortable saying that anyways, but I understand what you're saying. I just realized that it's not common practice, quite frankly. But anyways. Okay, if there are no other comments on the Little Lancers program, I'm going to move it forward here. Are there any more comments by?
Mr. Chairman, just to review for the record, if you decide to make the change, I would respect that the change be effect on the 13th, which is Monday, allowing me the opportunity to send the new policy out to all families tomorrow.
That's actually not going to be how it's going to work.
Okay.
Because there are other factors in play here as well. So, okay. I appreciate what you're saying, and it's going to actually, if in fact we make a change, I think it's not going to be beyond that for a couple of reasons, and I'll go into this discussion.
Thank you.
All right, any comments from the school committee? No? Okay. I think we all at this point have had enough time to think it through. I know for myself, I was up from 2 o'clock on last night thinking about this. That's been my life for the past couple of weeks, quite frankly. I know how I felt about this question as a whole for quite a while. So, I think it's time at this point to move forward. To Joe's point, a couple of thoughts. First of all, obviously we need a transition period here to make sure that we can get the word out. One of the things, Joe, also is I think this is going to have to be something that parents sign off on if we do in fact do that, because it can't be up to the kid to walk in and say, I don't want a mask. I think the parent needs to tell you, hey, my child does not require a mask. You okay with that, Joe?
Yeah. For the sake of consistency, yes, simply because I keep hearing about parent choice and so on and so forth, and I don't want somebody to be in the classroom all day and they weren't supposed to be wearing it, and they would, or vice versa.
Right. I don't want a parent to come back and say, hey, you unmasked my child. So, and the second thing is something Joe, you may have alluded to it earlier. If we do make a change here, the Norton Teachers Association is, by right and by duty, I think, needs to impact bargain this. And quite honestly, we can't make a change like this if I don't know what the cost is going to be. So we're going to have to go to those guys and at least hash it out. We don't know how long it's going to take. What I would suggest is maybe set the date for our next meeting, if that's okay. And if we can get through that by then, great. With the idea that if we get through it faster, we can always move the date up. But if not, we need to be able to delay it. Joe, is that?
Yeah, again, that's going to require two of you representatives, I believe, is you and Ms. Gallagher, with the MTA, so setting up a meeting.
Yeah, Shannon, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to.
Just, I'm talking about a little bit more of a short negotiation, just trying to kind of get through as fast as we can. So we
that has been diligently working forever on everything that's on.
No, that's okay. I just.
So yeah, we have committee, we have a process. There's a lot that needs to go into it, that I don't know. But
Right.
I'm not helping with it, so I don't know what is going to happen.
Understood.
And as with anything, we are willing to pardon completely up.
All right, and as always, I appreciate that and great work, quite frankly. Okay, so without any other conversation, I would entertain a motion to change the current masking policy to read masks required 5 and above, strongly encouraged and recommended for under 5. Is that? Just right. Oh, somebody.
That's the coverage of 5 and over elementary, early childhood.
So change the current policy to be under 5, masks are recommended, not required.
Recommended.
All right, I would entertain a motion, thusly.
Second.
Okay, and Joe, we're all here, we don't need a roll call vote, is that correct?
Yes, just for the public.
But we do need a roll call.
Yes, please.
Okay. All those in favor, Mrs. Gallagher? Can you guys, when you just into the mics?
Yes.
Mrs. Stern?
Yes.
Mrs. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Sheedy?
Yes.
And me, Mr. Savas, yes. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, I think that's the entirety of our agenda today. Other than other business, does anybody have any other business?
There are a few questions, if you don't mind.
I just want to make sure that we're recognizing the people that are online. First off, thank you for keeping the health and safety of all students a priority. At the end of the day, keeping the safety of students, staff, and everyone in the building matters most.
not what the parents want politically. As a teacher, parent, community resident, I haven't come across one child who is bothered, angry, or not wanting to go to school because of a mask. To try to be equitable, would creating masked rooms and unmasked rooms and limit contact among the kids and staff. I think that was something that was discussed last night as well. Can you hear me, Dennis? Okay. So I think that was just a comment. I want to make sure that we're recognizing. There is a question though, if a child turns 5 in preschool, would that child be required to wear a mask?
My assumption would be by DESE's mandate, they would be. If children disagree, or if our legal counsel disagree, we can ask our counsel, but I would assume that the mandate applies to them.
If your vote was based on the age, then your policy is based on the age. So you could amend your policy to say unless still age 5 and in Little Lance's preschool. But hopefully nobody's turning 5 in the next 2 weeks. Let me take a look at the data and I'll send it to you right away. I'll ask for the program to give us who's going to turn back, because it may not be much of an impact, or it could be a significant impact.
And I would also, I see people shaking hands, they want to do that, but I would prefer just not to do that, because it is against what the DESE mandate says. I get it, I'm sure it's not a popular, but no one's clapping down, right? But yeah, I think at the very least we should get clarification on that, but because they may fully intend it to be pre-K, but we should know that before we change it. Jen, you got any more?
That's it.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow, I will just seek legal counsel's advice to you as it pertains to that age 5 and under versus my recommendation earlier.
Yeah.
Wasn't a recommendation.
Absolutely.
I understand where you're coming from, so we should probably cross T's and dot I's.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, any other business? Seeing no business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So, second. All those in favor, Mrs. Gallagher?
Aye.
I actually did read your names off, so we're gonna start that again. All those in favor, Mrs. Gallagher?
Aye.
Mrs. Stern?
Aye.
Mrs. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Sheedy?
Yes.
Mr. Savas, yes. Good night. Thank you for coming, folks.
Thanks, everyone.